You might know that feeling, that kind of vague sense that your surroundings, or maybe even your own body, just feels off, somehow unreal. It's an unsettling feeling, and actually it affects a surprising number of people. And that's exactly what we're getting into in today's deep dive. We're looking at this document, symptoms.pdf, to explore together the many, many ways these experiences can show up. Our goal really is just to offer some clarity, some understanding for you, our listeners, without, you know, claiming to make any diagnoses.
Absolutely. These experiences of, let's call it alienation and unreality, they're actually more widespread than people often think, and they quite often show up alongside other difficulties or stresses. The document you mentioned breaks down these complex experiences into 7 broad areas, which we plan to unpack today.
Okay, great. So let's kick things off with the first category, changes in body experience and sense of self. Imagine looking in the mirror and the reflection feels strange, or your body feels like it doesn't really belong to you. Some people even describe it like they're acting like, well, remote control automatons without any real inner involvement.
Yeah, and what's fascinating there is just how fundamental our sense of body is to our sense of self. I mean, when people have trouble recognizing themselves in the mirror or their physical boundaries feel kind of blurred, it really highlights how much our brain constructs this feeling of embodiment and how sensory disruptions can mess with that fundamental feeling.
It even goes further, doesn't it? The document also describes so-called out-of-body experiences. You know, the feeling of being outside your own body, maybe looking down at yourself or seeing yourself like a double. And the document gives some really powerful examples of this, like someone saying, I can't really recognize myself in the mirror anymore. Who is that looking back at me?
Mm.
Or this one, I feel like I'm just reacting like a robot. None of this makes any sense to me anymore. Those quotes, they really capture that deep estrangement from oneself.
And these altered self-perceptions can, understandably, cause deep unease and confusion. It really makes you question how fragile our sense of identity can be when that basic connection to our own body is disturbed.
Absolutely. Okay, let's move on to the next area, impairments in sensory perception. It seems like vision often plays a central role here. People report watching events as if from a distance or having their field of vision narrow in a tunnel vision, sometimes seeing dots or spots. Perspective vision can also change, which understandably leads to a lot of insecurity, especially in traffic or in poor lighting conditions.
And it's interesting that hearing can be affected too. Sounds might seem muffled, or even your own voice can sound strange, unfamiliar. It just shows how profoundly these changes in sensory input can impact our self-perception.
Right, and it's not just sight and sound. The senses of touch and taste can also be diminished. Maybe finding it hard to really perceive touch, or food tasting bland. There are some very personal accounts in the document about this, like, I have the feeling that I only consist of eyes. I can only feel my eyes. Nothing else is there, just my eyes.
Mm.
Or this one. Since the symptoms started, my voice sounds completely strange. I often can't recognize it when I speak. I then ask myself, who is that? And this is quite moving. When I'm intimate with my girlfriend, I can't feel anything. I know she's doing something to my body, but it doesn't get through to me.
Yeah, those examples really hit home. These sensory changes obviously have a huge impact on daily life and relationships. Just imagine what it must be like when those basic sensory experiences that connect us to the world suddenly feel distorted or just reduced.
Absolutely, you can see how distressing that would be. Which brings us to the physical complaints that often go along with these experiences. Headaches and eye pain are mentioned frequently, which could partly be due to the sheer effort, right? The strain of trying to compensate for those altered perceptions.
Exactly. Exhaustion and tiredness are also very common companions to this. And beyond that, many people report dizziness, a sort of inner restlessness, or even panic attacks. It's a reminder of how strongly psychological distress can manifest physically.
Yeah, that fits with the statement in the document. Something always hurts, mostly my head and eyes. It's like the body is reacting to these unusual perceptions with pain. Now, let's touch on another crucial aspect, emotional restrictions. For many people going through this sense of alienation and unreality, their emotional experience is significantly dampened. Feelings might be muted or even feel absent altogether, which often leads to a loss of joy in life. As someone put it quite starkly, I no longer enjoy life. How can it be fun if you don't care about anything?
It's really striking how deeply this altered perception of self and the world can affect emotional experience. I mean, if the world and even yourself feel foreign, it becomes incredibly hard to feel any kind of emotional resonance. It raises the question, doesn't it, of how much our emotions are tied to our vibrant connection to reality.
That's a really important point. And these feelings can also trigger fears, often quite irrational fears. Many people describe being afraid of going mad or sort of disintegrating internally. There's also fear of losing control or fear of never waking up from this state. Here's an example of that. I'm afraid that I'll disintegrate at some point, that at some point I won't be there at all. The symptoms will consume me completely. That's why I always have to fight against them to at least be there for a bit. That really conveys the sort of existential threat these feelings can represent.
And those fears can, of course, make an already difficult situation even worse, potentially creating a vicious cycle. That constant fear of losing your identity or your grip on reality is immensely stressful and can really wear down your psychological resilience.
That's true. Okay, let's look at the impact on cognitive performance. Many people report mental restlessness, problems concentrating, and impaired memory, often described as brain fog. By brain fog, we mean that kind of mental cloudiness that makes clear thinking difficult, right?
Exactly. And rumination is also very common, those looping thoughts like, why me? Or will this ever go away? These repetitive thoughts can just add to the cognitive load that's already there.
And these cognitive impairments, when they persist, can lead to this draining mental fatigue and a real lack of motivation. It's totally understandable that ongoing difficulty with concentration and memory would be incredibly wearing. And there's another typical quote here. It's so difficult for me to concentrate on anything. I try, but I can't do it. The longer I have to concentrate, the harder it is. I'm dead tired afterwards.
Mm.
Finally, let's look at how the experience of the outside world itself can change. Just as one's own body or self can feel different, the environment and other people can also start to seem alien, distant, or unreal, like being on a big stage set with actors.
What's also interesting here is that the perception of time can shift. People might experience time as speeding up or slowing right down. So that sense of flow, the rhythm of time that usually anchors us, that can be disrupted too.
The document quotes someone saying, "Everything seems strange to me. Sometimes even my own home. How am I supposed to find my way around?" And another, "Time is racing by. I can't keep up with it. The days fly by and I haven't done anything." These really highlight that disorientation, that feeling of being disconnected from normal reality.
Yeah, and this altered perception of the outside world can severely impact your sense of belonging and connection. It's like perceiving the world through a veil, which can make interaction and just feeling comfortable in your surroundings really difficult.
So let's quickly recap. We've explored 7 main categories of impairment linked to feelings of alienation and unreality today. Changes in body and self-experience, sensory perception issues, physical complaints, emotional restrictions, fears, cognitive difficulties, and a changed experience of the outside world. It's become really clear how interconnected all these areas are.
Right. And it's so important to emphasize that experiencing these symptoms is more common than many might realize, and it can often be a reaction to underlying stress or difficulties.
Yeah.
If some of these descriptions resonated with you, we really encourage you to seek out more information and perhaps professional support. There are ways to manage and cope with these experiences.
Definitely. And thinking about all this, considering how fundamentally our senses shape our experience of ourselves and reality, it makes you wonder, what does it tell us about the very nature of consciousness that these basic perceptions can be so profoundly altered? Just a thought to perhaps ponder on.